Greetings, fellow Gorehounds, and welcome back to a Blood Splattered Vlog. I'm the Horror Guru. And he's Count Jackula, and today we're going to talk about Azrael. And Azrael is a post-apocalyptic horror film by director E.L. Katz.
And now we are going to talk, possibly at length, about a movie that has next to no dialogue.
Yes. So the idea with this movie is it's about a girl named Azrael who is on the run from a cult in a post-apocalyptic world. And by post-apocalyptic, I mean the rapture literally happened, and everyone that's in this movie are the people who weren't raptured. They're still on Earth with the burned ones, these creatures that seem to feast on people's blood. They're kind of like vampire ghouls. The cult believes they are going to birth the second coming of Christ, and in order to do that, they must do some sacrifices, and Azrael and her husband are among the sacrifices. At least that's what I took away from the movie as I was watching it. None of this is explained in dialogue. It's all visually told.
Yeah, there is like maybe 3 lines of dialogue given by one character in this movie.
Yeah, so if I got any details wrong there, I apologize. The movie leaves a lot open to interpretation. But that was my interpretation of the video.
That was my interpretation as well.
That was yeah.
I feel like, okay, they're a weird cult that like sacrifices their voice literally, like you enter the cult and they're like,
yeah,
you know, no larynx anymore.
And so the main characters are like that too. They have no voice either. So no one speaks except for one character at the midpoint of the movie, but they speak a foreign language that is not subtitled. So
yeah.
If you're an English-speaking viewer like me, you have no idea what this person's saying.
Yeah, it becomes apparent in that scene that not only can she not speak, she doesn't understand spoken languages at all.
Yeah, yeah. And it doesn't seem like there's any, like, written language that these people use
like no
either.
writing either.
Communication is entirely either nonverbal or through whistles, as the movie shows. The main crux of this movie, once you get into it, is the cult kidnaps her husband, and she's got to get her husband back. And that kind of becomes her main driving force in this movie. A, get away from the cult, but then also try to get her husband back so they can both get away from the cult.
Yeah.
It's a pretty simple movie in that sense. It's got some pretty awesome action scenes in it, and it's got some awesome ghoul action with those burnt ones.
Yeah.
Like the way they tear into people, they do not skimp on the bloody red stuff in this movie. But it all builds up into a badass action finale that we'll talk about in the spoiler section. This is, again, one of the many Samara Weaving movies where she just kills everybody.
Yeah.
Which, yes, Samara Weaving plays Azrael, so you kind of know what to expect. Like a lot of her movies, she's going to end up covered head to toe in blood in the final scene, and this movie does deliver on that.
Yeah.
The whole movie is on her shoulders because there's no dialogue to drive it. She has to tell most of the story.
Yeah.
Because she's the thing you're following for most of the movie.
Yeah, and she never speaks.
Nope.
It's a movie told almost entirely purely visually, which is hard.
Yeah, especially with all the lore involved in this.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if I interpreted the lore entirely correctly. There might be things I missed about it, right?
Yeah.
But there's a whole lot of lore, like in the paintings that lady has drawn and whatever backstory led to them being on the run from the cult. Like,
yeah.
You kind of have to piece that together while you watch. The movie never tells you.
Yeah, it literally doesn't.
It only shows you, and it shows you in a way that is pretty much up to you to determine what it means.
Yeah.
Because of the lack of dialogue, and because it is like a Walking Dead-esque kind of post-apocalyptic movie, the first hour of the movie is pretty basic.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of like surprises there, outside of maybe the burnt one first showing up.
Yeah. Like the first like 2/3 of the film are pretty standard. It's not until the last act that the movie goes apeshit.
Yeah, and that's when the movie really starts to shine for me.
Yeah.
Up until that point, it's an okay movie. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the characters and all that stuff. When it gets to that last act, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I get why this movie was getting a lot of praise.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. This is why.
It goes from a 7 to a 10 in the last act.
Yeah, it does. And then it kind of goes to 11.
Oh, yeah.
The last possible minute.
The last shot of this is mwah.
Oh,
Perfect.
Wonderful.
Perfection.
Wonderful.
Now, as you could probably guess, given the fact that this is a movie set in a post-raptured world, there's a lot of religious allegory happening in this movie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't talk too much about it until we get to the spoiler section, but there is a reason why she shares the name with the Angel of Death.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah. There's also a reason they picked Azrael as opposed to like one of the other potential names, because Azrael is sometimes equated with the scapegoat. For my esoteric scholarly brothers out there, you're like, Azrael isn't the scapegoat, that's Azazel. Yes, but sometimes texts equated the two incorrectly.
Gotcha. I can see what you're talking about there, yeah. Things are literally still happening in this movie. Make no mistake. This movie doesn't go so off the grounded path that you don't know what's happening anymore.
Yeah. You know everything is literally happening.
Like, it's kind of amazing how grounded this movie remains despite how wild it gets in the last act.
There's no moment where you're like, is the character hallucinating this? Like, no, it's all happening.
Now, I do have a couple of criticisms. The first criticism I have is that most of this movie looks great, except when you get to the middle section, when a large portion of the movie takes place in the woods at night where there's no light.
Yeah.
Those scenes are frustrating because you literally can't see half the time when those scenes are happening. And we watched this in theaters, so this isn't like a settings on our monitor thing.
Yeah, no, it was that's the way the movie came to us.
That's the movie came to us in a pristine movie theater with really nice seats, actually.
Yeah, really nice seats, a really good screen, you know, like everything looked.
But that middle section, when she's running through the woods, when she's not in the cult encampment, and when she's not in a car, we'll talk about the car in the spoiler section, those portions are the most frustrating because you just want to be able to see what's happening, but it's a lot harder to see.
Yeah.
You can tell certain things are happening, like when a ghoul is biting someone's neck open, you can tell.
You can tell. Yeah, this is why sometimes you do day for night.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I was like, I just kind of wish you had just put on the blue filter. That would have been fine for me.
Yeah, just so I could literally see what's happening.
Exactly.
You know?
Now that's only for like a certain section of the movie where she's basically on the run. Once you get past that scene and like we're in locations where there's actual light sources, the movie's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Especially the final act.
Well, that's where you could tell all the real care was taken.
The movie I kept thinking of in the final act is the final act of The Ritual.
Yeah, because everything's on fire and everyone's running around and all this shit is happening.
Absolutely. And also like religious like things happening in cults. Like there's some similar things happening there. What's interesting about this movie is that the cult in this movie is technically a Jesus cult.
Yes.
But it's a Jesus cult of people that came to the Jesus religion, the Christianity, after everyone was already raptured.
Yeah, after like a good portion of the population just goes poof.
So they're kind of cynically adopting the religion.
Yeah.
Which is something the movie kind of points out without ever saying it.
Yes. One of the... Oh, wait, we're still in the non-spoiler section.
We're still in the non-spoiler section. We'll move on to it soon.
Right.
As you can tell from Jack a second ago, it is actually really hard to talk about this movie without talking about the last act. So we will move on to the last act of this movie in a second. I enjoyed Azrael. Like I said, it's like a 7 for like 2/3 of the movie, and then in the last act, it becomes a 10. It's totally worth it for that last act.
Yes.
Believe you me. Yes. And all the details in the first like 2/3 of the movie are kind of important for how the last act plays out. So you're going to want to watch the whole movie and not just get to the end.
Yeah.
Azrael is currently available in theaters. That's how we saw it. But if you can't make it out to the theaters, it will eventually be on Shudder in the next few months. So keep an eye out for that. And with that said, my fellow Gorehounds, let us move on to the spoilers.
Okay, about halfway through the movie, she gets picked up by this guy in his, like, truck.
Yeah. And up until this point, people haven't been using a lot of advanced technology.
Yeah, we've seen guns.
They're not using radios, they're not using TVs, they're not using flashlights.
Yeah, they feel like they're in the middle of like Mad Max in the woods or something.
Exactly. So when she encounters this guy on this road in a pickup truck with a ton of lights and like a CD player there and all these things.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden civilization enters the movie.
Yeah.
And you realize that outside of this forest that the movie's taking place in, there is a world that is still out there.
Yeah, there's a world still functioning. These people have decided that they are going to retreat to the woods and try to gain the favor of Jesus.
Yeah.
But it's the rapture. That means it's already happened. So that ship fucking sailed.
They're not going to gain the favor of Jesus, but they seem to be convinced based on messages they get on the wind. Because there's an aspect in this movie where the wind is always telling them something. Now, it's never literally saying anything to us, the audience, but you can see them paying attention to the wind, listening to the wind, and then taking action based on what the wind does.
Yeah.
There's a character in this movie who's kind of like the spiritual leader of the cult. Not the actual leader. There's a leader girl who is the person calling all the shots. And then there's the spiritual leader who that one seeks guidance from.
Yeah.
And the spiritual leader is constantly communing with this hole in a wall and the wind that's blowing through it.
Yeah.
And it's blowing through it, making whistling sounds like wind often does. And throughout the movie, the village communicates in whistles, so there's kind of like a thematic thing going on there with wind and whistles. But at some point, it seems clear based on the drawings this spiritual leader has made on the wall, they are supposed to do something. And you see like images of like certain people burning, and one of them is blonde, like our main character, so you assume that she's supposed to be a sacrifice for whatever they're trying to do, which maybe that's why they left the cult in the first place and we're on the run. We don't know for sure, but we can guess that based on the pieces of information we're given. Whatever they're doing, it's to cause whatever is brewing in that spiritual leader's baby to help them go back to heaven.
Yeah.
Because she is pregnant. So if you're catching what we're kind of putting down here, it can't possibly be a return of Jesus in her belly. It's got to be something else. And as the movie goes on, we learn, yes, it is something else.
Yes.
Our first clue that it's something else is there's a point in the movie after this extended car crash sequence and after they use her husband to lure her into a trap only for her husband to be eaten by one of those burnt ones.
Yeah.
She goes back to the village to seek revenge on the village after all this takes place. To specifically target the spiritual leader first. Finds out the spiritual leader's pregnant, has a moment of hesitation, and that leads to her getting captured again and getting put into a fucking hole in the ground where she's gonna be fed to a burnt one that is in this cave underground.
Yeah.
But before she went down, she scratched the spiritual leader's stomach, which is where the pregnant baby is. And when the burnt one attacks her, it stops when it smells that blood.
Yeah.
Something about the blood inside the spiritual leader is commanding the burnt one to back off.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured out yet, the burnt ones are most likely demons or lost souls. They are not likely to be of heaven. It's not Jesus inside that belly.
Yeah, because hell is now on earth.
Yes. What is inside that belly is most likely the Antichrist. And we find this out after she enacts her revenge on the village after crawling out of that cave. She fucking burns the goddamn village down. And the first thing she does is she burns like the leader's grandma or mom or whatever it was inside that tent who was dying. Burns her alive. Fucking cold-blooded.
Oh yeah, cold-blooded.
And brings death upon the whole village.
Yeah, she kills basically everybody.
She gets a hold of one of their guns and just starts sniping them off one by one.
Yeah.
And has a confrontation with the spiritual leader, has a confrontation with the leader, kills the leader, but the spiritual leader goes into labor in the middle of their fight. Gives birth to this thing that makes an ungodly noise when it's fucking born. Spiritual leader sees what it is before the rest of us does, and then slits her own throat, like in horror. And then all of the burnt ones descend upon that church. The main character, Azrael, goes to the baby, picks it up, revealing a little goat demon baby.
Yeah,
the Antichrist.
Baby.
And what an adorable little goat baby it was.
Oh my god. I want a stuffy of that.
Yeah. You know what it made me think of? It made me think of the movie Lamb.
Yes.
But with a goat.
Yes.
And the movie ends on a glorious final shot when the camera pulls back and there's this little circular like window in the church that has like moonlight pouring through. So it kind of looks like a halo
they
behind her head.
Yeah, they totally do like, the Pieta, like,
well,
not the Pieta, the Virgin Mary.
While the church is burning around her and all the ghouls are like screaming in a sense that kind of sounds like they're hailing their leader. And she just smiles holding the baby.
Yeah, goat baby. Yeah.
Because she has officially become Azrael, the angel of death, and surrogate mother to the Antichrist.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And that is why this movie goes from a 7 to a goddamn 10 in this ending. I was like, oh, please. Oh, please. And they showed the goat baby. I was like, yes.
I was so worried they weren't going to show it, and they did it. Thank you.
This movie reminds me a little bit of Immaculate from earlier this year. Where like the last scene and the last shot elevate what was already a pretty good movie into like a great movie. And they're kind of thematically similar.
They're thematically very similar.
They're thematically paralleled.
Yeah.
I should say, because they kind of go off in their own directions, but they're
the result is different.
She's adopting a baby.
Yeah, as opposed to
aborting one.
The
sequence by the fire when the husband is eaten by the burnt one. She's hanging because they got her in one of those like noose traps around her leg, and she's hanging there.
Yeah,
and she has to like climb under the tree when the fucking ghoul is coming after her.
Yeah. That's the other thing. These ain't zombies, baby.
Oh yeah. When it leaps into the tree, I'm like, oh.
Okay, they can climb trees. They can burrow underground. You know what? You're just fucked.
Yeah. But anyway, my fellow gorehounds, Azrael is a gem of a movie. I'll understand with everything else in theaters right now if you do not get a chance to see it, but if you do go out to see it, trust me, it is worth the watch. If you are watching this video and you're someone who is involved in the production of this movie, I would love to hear what like the intended interpretation of the series of events in this movie were in the comments below, because obviously we've given our own interpretation here, but like if there's any details we missed that explain other aspects of the movie,
because like I'm sure we missed shit. I was so impressed by the fact that despite there being no dialogue, I was like, I'm not lost.
No, I'm not. You always know what's happening. The only time I got lost at any point in the movie was when it was too dark to see what was happening.
Yeah.
And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, where can they find you, Count Jackula?
Well, you can find me here on YouTube, where I stream every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And you should come down, ask me any kind of questions relating to horror movies, sex and horror movies, Transformers, because they're more than meets the eye, or any sort of weird, esoteric, occult craziness, because, like, I love that shit. What about you?
Y'all know me. I'm the Horror Guru. You can find me at the Horror Guru on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Facebook. Just look up the Horror Guru or Blood Splattered Cinema and I'll be there. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're notified of my videos immediately upon their upload. And if you'd like to help out either of us more directly, be sure to check out our Patreon pages. And remember, if you decide to go the Patreon route, even $1 a month can go a long way. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, if you made it this far into the video, then I want you to comment below, and be sure to comment below using the hashtag GOATMOM. Use the hashtag GOATMOM, that way I know. That way Jack knows. That way the whole world knows that you are going to reign in hell. For hell is now on earth. And with that said, my fellow gorehounds, peace out, and we'll catch y'all later.